Our next question comes from Kelly Kell, who says, as a lifelong agnostic, I can attest that a big part of my hatred toward religion came from jealousy. Death has been the biggest fear in my life, and seeing people believe in eternity made me resent them, because I couldn't believe. I do not have any resentment toward faith and religion anymore, but I am still unable to believe in any particular religion. I would say I now have a certain degree of faith in something bigger than myself, but I'm lacking a belief system to follow, a framework to build my life upon. I'm scared atheists are right. I'm scared a religion that has a hell and requires me to believe in it is right. But most importantly, I'm scared of the unknown. If anyone could give me any type of advice or something, I would be incredibly grateful. That's so interesting. An agnostic afraid of the unknown. Agnostic literally means against knowledge, meaning that it is the belief that it is impossible to know things of a surety. And it's a commonly misused word. I don't know if you're misusing it. A lot of people misunderstand agnostic and seem to think that it's like you have a theist or a religious person who believes in God, and then you have an agnostic somewhere in the middle who's just not sure. That's not what it means, but a lot of people think that's what it means. And then atheists who don't believe in God. Agnostic means you don't believe it is possible to know. It literally means against knowledge. So that is so interesting, this phrase, I'm scared of the unknown, and that is honest. That is incredibly honest. That's where we gotta start, man, the honesty. I'm also terrified of the unknown. Some people have terrifying nightmares about monsters chasing them or dying or falling off a cliff or something like that. I think the most terrifying dreams I have are the ones where I fly out into outer space, and I'm just flying and seeing the vastness of the universe and reaching the unknown, and it's terrific and terrifying and awesome and incredible. I have these dreams a lot. I don't know if you guys do, but just flying through the universe in the blackness of space and just seeing how big and vast and huge it is and wondering, am I ever going to find my way back? Do I even want to? This is mind-boggling to see how incredibly small a human being is. We are our own world. World comes from the Old English wer, which means man. We find that in other words like werewolf, a man-wolf, and alt, which is where the word old comes from, which means time or age. World, wer olt, the age of man, literally the age of man. And so when we say, oh, people think that they are the center of the universe, people think the world revolves around them. Well, we're not the center of the universe, but the world does literally revolve around human beings, because world literally means the age of man. It is the time that human beings spend on this planet. It is the history and the story of mankind. That's literally what world means. If we go back to Old English, semantic drift would say otherwise, but let's be literal. But you're not here for an etymology lesson. No, sir. You're here being really honest about your fear. And that takes great courage to be really honest about my fear, man, about your fear. And I'll be honest with you about some of my fears. When I was 21 years old, I had a near-death experience, and I've talked about it a bunch on this channel, and I was hospitalized for a very, very long time, and I came very close to dying on many occasions, and it was frightening. And in spite of being a lifelong man of faith and believing in God and believing in the immortality of the human soul and believing that I was on the right path, etc., etc. When faced with imminent death, I felt imminent imminent fear of the unknown, all these what-ifs coming out that I didn't think would come out. All of these second-guessing, all of the second-guessing that happened that I didn't think would happen when it was my time. And that shocked and scared me even more, because I learned something about myself. There's the story we tell ourselves about who we are and what we believe, and then there's who we actually are. In the face of adversity, when push comes to shove, when we stare death in the face. And these are different things. How do you feel about death? Do you fear death? I love Lex Friedman's podcast because he asks people questions like this every single time, regardless of their walk of life. He asks the important questions, not just the important questions about understanding artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency or whatever the current event is. He has a lot of interesting podcasts about all kinds of subjects, but he always asks all of his guests what they think about death, what they think the meaning of life is. I mean, he's a man searching for meaning. He's a man searching for happiness. And he's got some ideas, and he's very vocal about them, but he's always opening up this dialogue about death and the hereafter, which is a subject many, many people, probably most, are uncomfortable with. I mean, man, think about Chinese culture, for example. I live on the 4th floor of my building, and we got cheaper rent than most other people in this apartment complex because we live on the 4th floor of this building. Why? Because there's an old Chinese superstition about death and the number 4. Because the number 4 in Chinese sounds a lot like the word for death in Chinese. And so the number 4 has become intricately linked with the idea of death. It's like in Western culture, the number 13 is an unlucky number, and so a lot of people will try to avoid living on the 13th floor. You know, it's the same kind of thing, but probably to a more alarming degree, because it literally sounds like death. I don't want to live on the death floor. I don't want to live in the death room. I don't want to live in apartment 444. I don't want to live in death. It sounds like something out of a horror movie in the Chinese language. So, you know, I get it. I understand. You know. So this is a fascinating question. I'm scared that the atheists are right, because, man, there are some people who think they just want to disappear because they're having a hard time in life, and they're carrying a burden in their heart and in their mind, and they don't want to experience that anymore, and they think the sweet release of death will just make it all go away, and so they don't like the idea that the soul goes on and the consciousness persists. They hate that idea, and they fight against that idea. And if anybody believes that idea, they'll try to shoot it down because it makes them feel uncomfortable. No, I want this to end. I want my suffering to end. I want my guilt to end. And then we have this traditional Christian idea that, nope, it doesn't end. And you've got to be accountable for that burden you're carrying in the hereafter. And there's some pretty divergent ideas about hell, a fairly common one and a fairly unbiblical one, I would point that out. Little red dudes with pitchforks poking you in the butt over a pit of flames. It's not exactly what I believe myself. It's not what's taught in my own church. But there most certainly will be a reckoning. And you're scared of that reckoning, man. You're scared of the idea of an eternity that you don't like, right? Nobody wants an eternity that they don't like. I read an article a number of years ago, and I watched a few videos on the same subject. Seems to be a fairly popular subject to think about. The idea that you don't want immortality. Well, I'll tell you, you don't want immortality as you presently are. You don't. Because that, immortality as you presently are, would be hell in the long run. Probably for a pretty long time it wouldn't be. It would be pretty awesome to be immortal and live forever and see everything and experience everything until it stopped being so fun. Until the sun burned out and you find yourself floating around space with your thoughts and your regrets. And that would suck. Being a person as you are in your present state, just floating around space forever with your thoughts, that would suck. And to be the type of person who does not want the story to end, who does not want the adventure to come to a conclusion. The idea of just sinking into oblivion and nothing. And just out, brief candle is terrifying. What a waste. My younger daughter was playing a video game, and I accidentally turned off the console, and she had not yet saved her progress, and she was mad. She said, I worked so hard, and now it's all gone, and I have to start over. She's sad because her progress had not been saved. Jesus saves, guys. Jesus saves. I'm going to throw that out there. It's a video game analogy to Jesus. There you go. So how do you know? How does an agnostic, and I'm taking you at your word that you are literally an agnostic who is against the idea of belief, of knowledge, that it is possible to know. How does an agnostic know? You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable and step outside of your paradigm, because we are the creators of our own paradigm. As a very wise person once said to me, we are the creators of our own paradigm. So if you are stuck in paralysis with fear of the unknown, that is a paradigm that you have created. God grants unto all men according to their desires. This is a very strange idea. Where does that idea come? It comes from the Book of Mormon. It's repeated again and again in the Book of Mormon. God grants unto all men according to their desires, whether they be for good or for evil. That sounds kind of strange, especially from traditional Christian theology. A lot of people will think, no, God sends the righteous to heaven and the wicked to hell. Okay, is that really any different? Now I've got my own ideas about heaven and hell, and degrees of glory, and so on, but I just absolutely blanked on my train of thought right here. People are always saying, oh, you have these dramatic, long pauses in your videos. It's as if you are taking a dramatic pause for dramatic purpose. No, dudes, I'm just trying to remember what the heck I'm talking about here. I'm trying to formulate a thought before I say it. This is not scripted video, if you haven't noticed. This is not a scripted dialogue. So I honestly lost my train of thought and don't remember what I was just talking about a few seconds ago. And I can't just play back this video without re-recording it, because I do these in one take. So let's reread a bit of this question. So you are a agnostic, and you want to know, but agnosticism is against knowledge. And I feel like I was onto something important there, something about heaven and hell and degrees of glory and so on. Ah, yes, God grants unto all men according to their desires, whether they be good or evil. And you might think, well, evil people, they want to rule the world. They want to make things miserable for everyone else. Nah, man. God will give the evil people the evil reward, man, and give unto the good that which is good. So are you evil? Are you worried that when you die, all your progress from this game is going to be lost? Save your game, dude. Jesus saves, man. But what if you don't believe in Jesus? Give it a try. How do you go about doing that? If you love me, keep my commandments. That's what the man said. If you love me, keep my commandments. It's not just a belief system. It's not just ideologies. The gospel of Christ is action. It's do stuff. I got a few questions about people asking me, do you pressure test your religion the same way you pressure test martial arts? Yeah. A religion without action, faith without works, is dead. It's no religion at all. It's not actually faith. If it's not giving you the result you want, it's not the right way. So you want something. It's like you want to believe. You have this desire to believe. You don't believe yet, but you have a desire to believe. A desire for knowledge, even though you are in the boat, the ideology that it is impossible to know. Well, I got news for you. That's an ideology. Faith is not an ideology. Faith is action. Faith is get off up your butt and allow your belief and your ideology to move you to action. It's not just crossing your fingers and hoping and wishing and waiting. It's getting out there and doing something. So do it, man. Do it. What are you waiting for? If anyone could give me any type of advice or something, I would be incredibly grateful. Express your gratitude to God, man. Try it. Try it. I know you said you're agnostic and you don't necessarily believe, but you want to believe in something. Try it. A fellow sent me a question saying he spent a lot of time praying and he wasn't getting answers. Well, try expressing gratitude. Count your many blessings. See what God has done, as the old song says. If you're not experiencing voices in your ears, okay, that may actually be for the best. But use this voice, your own, to express gratitude. This is game-changing, man. That's one of the first actions you can take, because as soon as you start expressing gratitude, and even if this time, even if this life is finite, and even if when we die it comes to an immediate end, be grateful for it. Be grateful you got to ride the ride. Be grateful for the pain. Be grateful for the suffering. Be grateful for the ups. Be grateful for the downs. Express that. Vocalize that. Make that known with your being. That is transformative. And then at the end of your days, when the world, your world, the age of man, the age of that man and this man comes to an end, these men will not be saying, I have so many regrets, but rather, thank you for the ride. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.